This is video 6 in the civil drawing, and we have a couple things left to do. We have a few dimensions to put over here, and then we're going to have a hatch pattern, do a little bit with annotative objects, and then we'll be finished up. Our viewports are on a viewport scale. I don't remember if I did that in the last video or not, but that's so that they are non-plot. So right now we have a drawing that looks like this. We have a few dimensions to put in for the footprint to show where they go. We can't use the same dimension style for this, even though we did use the same dimension style for both ordinate dimensions on the footprint as well as for the property plan, because they're two different kinds of dimensions. But we're going to put some linear dimensions here, and because they're linear dimensions, they're going to be placed the same way. They're going to have to look the same as the dimensions we have here. So I'm going to go back in, and I've created an architectural style right now, and if I look at it, it's basically a standard architectural style. The text above, a few other things, the offset from the dimension line 0.04, just the way you would do it normally in architectural scale, and I'll make that my current scale. So now let me go ahead and put a few dimensions in here. Go down into model space for this purpose, DLI for the dimension, pick this point right here, I'm going to pick this point right here, and I want to put that 115 foot dimension. Why is it in 115 feet? Because a linear dimension has two default settings, one horizontal, one vertical, but it's actually a rotated dimension. We can rotate it at any angle. So if we type the letter R, see, you've lost it on the command line, so let me go back so you can see DLI, that point right there, this point right here. If we type the letter R for rotated, we can rotate that dimension to any angle we want. All you have to do is pick a couple points on the screen at the angle you want the dimension to go. Now it rotates the dimension in place for you. We got the 115. Go back and do the 70. We're going to have a different problem. We still need to rotate it, so R for rotate. Do that. When we place this, though, you'll notice that the 70 shows up on the wrong side. I told you when we did the plot plan to go ahead and leave it. You could leave it in this case as well, but there are people who aren't going to like that because they're looking for this to be readable from the other side. So what we can do is this. I'm going to delete that. I'm going to go back in and add it again. So it's a linear dimension from here to here, and I am going to rotate it. The angle I'm going to rotate is from here to here, but I've got another option up here, which is angle. That doesn't refer to the angle of the dimension. That refers to the angle of the text in the dimension. So when I type that, it asks me for dimension angle. I'm going to pick the same points, or points at the same angle, because now when I place this, it's rotated the dimension to that angle. The only problem is that I have to drag the dimension itself up above to get it above the line, and it's not going to do that by default. If I go back in my dimension style, under text, under fit, under the fit tab, text placement when text is not in the default position, beside the dimension line, over the dimension line with a leader, over the dimension line without a leader. If I select that as part of my style, now I can grab this and just move the text out of place by itself. So now I've got the 70 up above the line and it's rotated into place. Now if I go and do, say, the 16 over here, I'm going to have the same problem with that as I bring it across. First, let's rotate it from here to here. And I could, if I wanted to, go ahead and type angle, do the same thing. But once I've got one of these, I can just go ahead and place all of these things in there. Then I can use the match prop, MA is the alias, match properties command. So let's match the properties of this to this. It won't match the properties as far as having dragged it out of place, but it will match the angle. But since I've changed my dimension style, I can drag that up here like so. And by the way, if you've placed it and then after the fact want to make that change, in other words, suppose I placed this dimension, I'm just going to pick a couple points, suppose I did a dimension like that, and it comes out on the wrong side, I can go to my dimension toolbar, pick the text edit button, and say let's edit that text, A for angle. Now I can pick the angle that I want to rotate it at, like so, and it flips over. I can also have picked the object, right-click, go to Properties, and under Properties I can change the rotation angle under Text, which is going to be right there. And I can change the rotation angle by picking 2 points from Properties by selecting the geometric calculator, picking 2 points. It's a little button, angle of line defined by 2 points. Now I could come over pick my 2 points. Once I pick the 2 points and I apply it, you'll notice whatever angle I selected gets applied to that dimension right there. So you got a couple ways you can fix this. You can do it while you're placing the dimension by typing A for angle and changing the angle of the dimension. You can do it after the fact by selecting properties. Do the same thing over here, by the way. Let's do that one with properties actually. If I pick that, right click, go to properties. Under properties, I say I want the text rotation angle, bring up quick calc to be at this angle right here. Apply, it rotates the dimension. Now I can grab it, pull it up above the line, and now it's in the right orientation. Now let's go ahead and place the hatch pattern in here. The hatch pattern is going to be annotative as well. I'll double click in this viewport and I'll move on in. If I go to the hatch command, there's a couple of things. One is I want this to be annotative, but picking annotative alone isn't going to give me a hatch that looks good. Here's why. If I go ahead and just place that and say, yeah, make it annotative, then I go and do a preview, you'll notice that it's filled right in because the scale of that hatch pattern is set to 1. That means the spacing is 1/8 of an inch, and 1/8 of an inch on the ground is a very, very, very tight hatch pattern. So what I want to do is scale that hatch so that it's relative to the paper space layout that I'm in. So I go back into my hatch pattern. I didn't mean to accept that hatch pattern. You can see that it's a lot of entities, so let me just erase it. So I go back into my hatch pattern. This time, instead of just picking this annotative, I also pick relative to paper space. Select my points. I have the option of separating them as separate hatches too, which probably in that case I'd want to do. So let's just do that. I do a preview now and it comes in the right scale. Everything looks pretty good. I go over and look on this side though. I don't see a hatch over here. If I want to see the hatch over here, because it's an annotative hatch, I have to assign the same scale to this that I have in the viewport. Only one annotative scale has been assigned right now, and that's the one in this viewport. So I'm going to go over here, make that viewport active, select the button called Annotative Visibility. That shows all of my annotative objects everywhere. That allows me to select both of those hatch patterns, right click, go to Annotative Object Scale, and just say Add Current Scale. Now it looks correct here, it looks correct there. I get a few things I don't want to see up here, a few dimensions, so I just go back and turn those off again. Now I have the viewport showing the hatch scale at the right scale here, hatch pattern at the right scale, and I have the same thing over here. Now let's just say I want to put a little piece of text down here. Maybe I want to identify that as a house. If I look at my styles, I have one annotative text style. I'm going to set it current. I come back out. I use the dtext command. And I say, let's put some text right here. Let's make the height of that text 0.25. Well, let's make it 1.12. The angle is going to be east. And I just say this is a house. I put it in like so. All right, nice and small. Doesn't show up over here. If I say, I'd really like to see that over here, what I have to do is go and make that the active viewport. Turn on all my annotative objects. Pick the one I want to add the scale to, add current scale. Now it's scaled properly for that viewport. Then I can turn everything else back off. Now you notice, however, it's at a slightly different angle. Not only is it a slightly different angle, but it's also in a different, in a position that I might want to change. If I grab it right now and move it down, it moves independently of the other annotative scaled version. I can do the same thing over here. I could put the word house over here. It doesn't change this one. That's one of the nicest things about annotative objects. If you grip edit them and move them around, you can have different annotative scales in different locations. What you can't do, however, unfortunately, and I'm surprised about this a little bit, since you can grip edit to move, I'd like to think that you could grip edit, right click, go to rotate, and then rotate one independent of the other. And if I did that so I could try to straighten that out, you notice that both of them rotate. So if I came over here, then the rotation of that one would be incorrect. So if you really want them at two different rotation angles, you actually have to put in two different pieces of text. Now make sure you put a detail title over here, house detail. Make sure you put the proper scale. And when you do this, don't do it on B size, do it on C size, and don't use either of the scales that I've used here. I want to make sure that you understand this. And just as a reminder, viewport scale and plot scale are only the same thing in AutoCAD if the units you use in plotting, inches, are the same as the units you use in drawing. We didn't use the same units here, we used feet. The scale is always paper space to model space units. So a viewport scale of 1 to 100 would actually be a plot scale, in this case, of 1 paper space unit to 100 model space units, 1 inch to 100 feet, 1 inch equals 100 feet. And the other thing is, and this is one drawing where people in the past sometimes have felt that the only thing they needed to do was get this thing done. And that is not the point of this. I can do this drawing, of course, and so can all the other instructors here and all the other students. The idea here is to understand all these concepts. So your job is to understand them. And if you don't, to go back and do it often enough so that you can do it over enough so you do understand it, ask questions in class. But this drawing by itself, when you get done, if you understand everything you've done here, you have a very good handle on paper space. When you're done, do a preview, make sure it looks good. You notice you got the house here, the layout, all this stuff looks pretty nice. Then you go ahead and answer your questions.